I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Cardinal Dolan will pray at both party conventions after accepting an invitation from Democrats. Plus, a new movie tells the story of a saint who experienced a powerful conversion. And as students prepare to head back to school, a summer program that prepares them mind, body, and spirit.
We're at the Father Troiki Leadership Program at Cathedral Prep Seminary. This is its 45th summer. Each of the academic classes that we run, the program would run from 9 to 12 for classes in the morning, would have a different focus.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. After Monday's delay due to Hurricane Isaac, the Republican National Convention in Tampa, Florida is getting underway in earnest. The jam-packed schedule, of course, includes the roll call to officially select Mitt Romney as the Republican nominee. Also on the agenda, a keynote address by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and a speech by Ann Romney. Cardinal Timothy Dolan will give the closing benediction at the RNC on Thursday. And the big news today, Cardinal Dolan has also accepted an invitation to give the closing prayer at the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina next week. Now, the Archbishop of New York and president of the U.S. Bishops' Conference has said his appearances at both conventions would be prayerful, not political. That said, Cardinal Dolan has written to the Democratic and Republican nominees for president and vice president, asking them to sign a Civility in America pledge. It was developed by the Knights of Columbus, and the pledge calls on candidates, commentators, and the media to focus on the critical issues facing our nation without making personal attacks. Earlier, I had the distinct pleasure of speaking with Carl Anderson. He is Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, to learn why the Knights created the document and the message behind the Civility Pledge. Carl, very interesting development, and I would certainly want to know more about it. What exactly is this Civility Pledge?
Well, it is a pledge that the Knights of Columbus developed to reinforce the idea that we can have a more civil public discourse. And so there's nothing complicated about the pledge. It simply says we want to have a more civil discourse in our public debate. And we pledge that we will do this ourselves and urge our politicians and members of the news media to do so as well.
And when did you and the Knights of Columbus actually draft the document? Like, how long has this been in development?
Oh, it's a very recent development for us, because we had conducted some polling with the Marist Institute and found some remarkable reactions among the American public. Like almost 8 in 10 Americans are upset with the civil discourse today that we have, or I should say the uncivil discourse. 2/3 of Americans think it's hurting the country, and 3/4 of Americans think that the situation is getting worse, not better. So as a result of that, we considered here at the Knights, what can we do to make a positive contribution and try to take this thing to the next level. And so we thought, American people feel very strongly about it. Let's give them an action item where people can do something to help raise the awareness on the issue. And secondly, maybe convince by signing this petition politicians that they should try to do better.
And Carl, any word yet on whether or not the presidential nominees have signed the civility agreement?
Well, I think it's a little bit early. We haven't heard back from them, but, you know, the Republicans are in their convention, and the Democrats, I think, are focused on the Republican convention, so hopefully maybe next week we'll begin to hear back about it. But I would think right now everybody's kind of looking to Tampa and what's happening there.
And having crafted this pledge, and with all the issues that we've been going through in the last year in terms of religious freedom, so on and so forth, what are you looking to hear from the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention? What issues do you want them to address?
Well, I think for us, Knights of Columbus, we've always been very concerned about religious liberty. We're very concerned about marriage and the family. We're very concerned about pro-life. So those are sort of, I would say, Catholic-specific issues. Now, I would say also, like everyone else, we're concerned about the economy. We're concerned about the growth of the federal budget and whether federal spending, government spending is fair, whether we're doing the right thing by the poor. So all of those things I think we share. But specifically as Catholics, what the religious liberty debate really has focused upon with the HHS mandate and why it is so urgent that we get a resolution to it is that this government policy forces Catholics and other peoples of faith and people who have no faith but agree with us that the services and products contain an intrinsic evil. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you're asking people who believe deeply that this is wrong, the government's forcing them to do it anyway, pay for it anyway. And so that has caused a certain urgency to it. This is not an abstract issue of separation of church and state or separation of powers within the government. It's something that concretely affects individual Catholics, affects churches, affects our schools, affects our hospitals, and so we've got to have a resolution to the question that is consistent with Catholic values. Mm-hmm. And so that's really a very important issue. It may not seem like such an important issue when we talk about the extent of the deficit or so many unemployed people in the country, but this really will determine in many, many ways the future of the Catholic Church and how its role in American society for many years to come. So it's a very important issue.
Carl, how can we become more actionable? I mean, you gave us a list of so many very, very important issues that we should all be very educated on, and we should be listening for, and we should be following, and we should see what the candidates have to say about them. But how can we, as voters, as we head to the poll, become more actionable? What do you suggest that we do in order to make our voices heard?
Well, I think we have to be very serious about our identity as Catholics, what we stand for as Catholics. And there are many values, and we bring those to bear in the public arena. So that's number one. I think one of the other things that Catholics are able to do, and maybe uniquely so, is to point out what are very important issues. And these issues often are related to whether government is going to promote what we understand to be intrinsic evils, like abortion is an intrinsic evil. And there's no other action you can take in terms of government policy that cures or overcomes the intrinsic evil of a policy that promotes abortion. So I would argue that we have to really draw a line in the sand and say no to any candidate whose policies promote intrinsic evils. After all, we would say as a businessman or a consumer, look, you wouldn't buy an intrinsically evil product. You wouldn't invest in a company that produces intrinsically evil products like, say, pornography. Why would you vote for a candidate that's promoting an intrinsically evil policy like forcing Catholics institutions to be supportive of abortifacients or other procedures which we understand to be evil and wrong?
All right, and thank you so much. And I also want to clarify again that the Catholic Church is nonpartisan, and we look at the issues and we look at the candidates as individuals, and that's how we make our decisions. And thank you so much, Carl. I really appreciate your being here with us, and we're going to check back with you to see the effectiveness that is of the civility pledge. Thank you again for being with us.
Great. Thank you, and I agree with what you just said.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I should mention that Carl Anderson is the 13th Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus. The organization is the world's largest Catholic fraternal service organization with more than 1.8 million members. Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. The rest of the day's top headlines coming up next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. The Archdiocese of New Orleans announced numerous closures as the Gulf Coast region prepared for the arrival of Tropical Storm Isaac. All administrative offices closed at 12 p.m. on Tuesday, with Archbishop Gregory Amen planning on reopening the offices on Thursday. Schools in the Archdiocese were to follow the same closing and reopening schedule as the public schools in their civic parishes. Most schools closed on Monday with plans to reopen on Thursday. Tropical Storm Isaac has already resulted in the scaling back back of the Republican National Convention from 4 full days to just 3. San Francisco's Archbishop-elect is asking for forgiveness after being arrested for driving under the influence. In a statement, Archbishop-elect Salvatore Cardinal apologized for what he called his error in judgment. In the statement, Cardinal said he feels shame for the, quote, disgrace I have brought upon the church and myself. The Archbishop-elect was in his hometown of San Diego driving his mother home from a dinner they both attended when he was stopped at a DUI checkpoint. Cardinal says he prays that God, in his inscrutable wisdom, will bring some good out of this. Last month, Pope Benedict announced the appointment of Cardinal as San Francisco's next archbishop. The archbishop-elect has been leading U.S. bishops' efforts to defend and promote traditional marriage. And from Pakistan, violence against Christians continues. The Vatican news agency Fides reports that 5 men raped and killed a Christian girl in the Punjab region of Pakistan. Fides says the incident happened on August 14th, but they only learned of it this week. According to the website Catholic Culture, reports differ as to whether the girl is 12 or 15. The news came one day before a hearing in another case involving a Pakistani Christian girl, the girl who reportedly has Down syndrome. She's accused of burning pages of the Quran. And a Vatican official is speaking out on behalf of that girl. Cardinal Jean-Louis Touran, the head of Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, noted that the girl does not know how to read or write. Speaking with Vatican Radio, the cardinal says the facts should be verified before the girl is accused of blasphemy. Catholic news agency cites reports from humanitarian organizations which say pages of the Quran were mixed in with trash that the girl collected to make a fire for cooking. A church leader in Syria has fled to neighboring Lebanon to seek refuge from the violence. Fides reports that the Melkite Archbishop of Aleppo is now in Lebanon after his residence was ransacked. According to the report, the residence for the Maronite Archbishop in the region was also ransacked. The news comes following the Vatican's confirmation that Pope Benedict's trip to Lebanon will move ahead as planned despite the violence in neighboring Syria. Last week, Vatican Radio reported that work is proceeding for the trip, which is scheduled to take place from September 14th through the 16th. Elsewhere in the Vatican, a reason to celebrate as a familiar face and voice celebrates a big birthday, and Rome Reports has the details on that.
The director of the Vatican press office, who serves as the spokesperson for the Pope, turned 70 years old on August 29th. Few people know that besides being a theologian and a philosopher, this Jesuit priest is also a mathematician. He's worked in the media now for more than 30 years. This was his first meeting with reporters just hours after the Pope appointed him as the Vatican spokesman.
I worked first in the press with the magazine Civiltà Cattolica, then in radio and the Vatican Television Center. I've learned the different areas of communication. Now at the age of 65, I have been asked to be the spokesperson. I will try to also learn this new office.
Over the past 6 years, he's had to deal with difficult questions and complicated issues. The first time was a PR crisis that erupted after the Pope's speech in Regensburg, Germany, which offended a large part of the Muslim world. Then a few months later, the Pope prayed in Istanbul's Blue Mosque, which had the desired effect of cooling tensions. The latest crisis is the VatiLeaks case. During his press briefing, he addressed the documents that were stolen from the Pope. Father Lombardi joked by saying that he was addressing gossip rather than issues that would concern a spokesman. Perhaps one of his main attributes is his versatility. Besides being director of the Vatican press office, he's also the director of the Vatican Television Center and Vatican Radio, as well as one of 4 Jesuits who are responsible for taking care of the Superior General on behalf of other members of the order. The position is called ad proviventiam. They handle mostly outside business such as clothes, food, and expenses of the Superior General, as well as his smaller affairs that involve helping lighten his workload.
An Irish cardinal has promised vigorous opposition to efforts to legalize abortion in his country. Cardinal Sean Brady says it is, quote, important as a church to prepare to work with others to oppose abortion. He called Ireland one of the safest places in the world for mothers who are expecting children. Abortion is not allowed in Ireland except when the mother's life is in danger. Cardinal Brady's remarks came during the opening of a school last week. Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. Coming up, this saint's restless heart is the basis of a powerful new film. Welcome back. During these warm, muggy days, people may be heading to cooler places to try and beat the heat, including to the movies. And amid the Hollywood blockbusters that have people filling theaters, a film that tells of a powerful conversion is being screened. Restless Heart is the story of St. Augustine. For more on Augustine, the film, and how you can get it screened in your area, I spoke earlier with Ignatius Press President and CEO Mark Brumley. Ignatius has the U.S. distribution rights to Restless Heart. Mark, St. Augustine has been described as the North African educator who became one of history's greatest teachers of the faith after a very dramatic conversion. Now, this is a really powerful legacy, and we hear what led up to this characterization in Confessions, but in your opinion, briefly, what is St. Augustine's greatest contribution to the faith?
Oh, his greatest contribution, well, I would say it is what is true of any saint, is the example of holiness, but of course each saint is different, and so the way in which holiness is manifested in the life of St. Augustine is in this wonderful interplay between faith and reason. Mm-hmm. He's a man of deep faith. He's also a brilliant man, a man of great reason, and his use of reason to present the faith, and his use of faith to understand more deeply. So it was just from St. Augustine, mm-hmm. via St. Anselm, that we get this definition of faith, which is of theology, which is faith seeking understanding. And so I think that's Augustine's contribution, is holiness, mm-hmm. permeating the use of the mind in order to believe more deeply.
Mark, what I really appreciated when I was doing my research about the book and about the movie was the fact that there was a relatability to St. Augustine, which of course is difficult to put into words. How do you really relate to a saint? But when you talk about the movie Restless Heart, it follows St. Augustine through this restlessness. We watch him as a youth pursuing fame and power, and then through various Gnostic philosophies. He was just restless through his life. He was never really satisfied with anything he was pursuing until he encountered Christ and his church. And I found that to be so moving. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey?
Well, sure. His journey is, in one sense, the journey of every human being. We think about people who are so-called cradle Catholics, and of course, there are people who were raised in the faith who never really kind of go away or go astray from the faith. Augustine has something to say to them, too, because in each of us in our lives, there's a period of searching of some kind, even if we stay within the church. But of course, he has a powerful story for those who maybe are raised in an unchurched setting, mm-hmm. Or who are raised as Christians, raised as Catholics, and who wander away. Mm-hmm. And really, it's the story of coming to know that God is our origin, he is our sustainer right here and now, and of course, he is our destiny.
Right,
that famous line, the title of the movie, Restless Heart, comes from that famous line in the opening of St. Augustine's Confessions. Augustine is addressing the Lord in the Confessions, the story of his life. He says, our hearts are restless until they rest in you. Mm-hmm. And so there is this need that we all have for abiding and resting in God, and Augustine's story is a model for us all in that regard.
And Mark, before we go, I have to find out, how can Catholics, the faithful, everyone, see this movie? Is it available in theaters worldwide or theaters near certain dioceses? How can we actually go in and hear and see about this brilliant man?
Well, here's what I'd say: two things. If the film is Restless Heart, and people want to find out more, can go to the website www.restlessheartfilm.com. That's restlessheartfilm.com. They can find out more about it, and they can do two things. First, they can see if there's a showing of the film in their area. There's a place on the website that shows where the film is going to be shown. And second, if they're interested in having the movie in a theater near them, they can use the contact information there and see what they have to do to have what's called a sponsored theatrical showing. And that's really what we're doing here. These are sponsored theatrical events. Churches, parishes, church organizations, pro-life organizations, other kinds of organizations, or organizing and sponsoring theatrical screenings in their local area. And they can invite people, they can sell tickets to have them come to watch this film, Restless Heart, Story of St. Augustine, in their local theater. They can do it as a fundraiser. They can do it, probably more importantly, as a faith raiser. So it's a great opportunity. And to do this, they just go to restlessheartfilm.com.
All right, Mark, thank you. We're going to leave it there, but I do thank you for that. I appreciate your being here, and we here at Currents wish you great success with this film. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for all you do.
You're very welcome. That was Mark Brumley of Ignatius Press, which has also released a new critical edition of Augustine's Confessions. Stay tuned, there's more Currents ahead. When we return, young men prepare for the next step of their Catholic education.
Cathedral has made me closer to thinking about the vocation. It made you think about it harder, and then going to Mass every day.
Finally tonight, across the country and of course right here in the diocese, parents are preparing to send their children back to school. Many of you may have already received a list of supplies in the mail, directions on where to go to get your child's school uniform. And if you're anything like me, you've set up a special spot on the refrigerator where you'll keep important dates, class schedules, and emergency contacts. In order to make this a successful school year, preparation is key. Well, during the summer, the spirit of preparedness was alive and well at Cathedral Prep in Elmhurst, Queens, thanks to the 2012 Father Edward W. Troike Summer Leadership Program. Now, the program, which is named for a late faculty member from the school, is designed to prepare 6th and 7th grade boys to take the next step on the education ladder. Those who participate get the opportunity to not only spend time in the classroom, but also sharpen their athletic skills. The concept and history of the curriculum piqued our interest this summer, so we visited Cathedral Prep for a first-hand look.
Our pronoun changes in a sense here, right? Do we understand this? Does it make sense?
We're at the Father Troike Leadership Program at Cathedral Prep Seminary. This is its 45th summer. Each of the academic classes that we run, the program would run from 9 to 12 for classes in the morning, would have a different focus. For the 6th grade boys, it's what they'll get in 7th grade. For the 7th grade boys, academically, we try to give them an experience of the TAKS exam, the test for admissions at Catholic high schools. So and today, in fact, the young men took a practice TAKS exam. And for our incoming freshmen, they get a general introduction to Cathedral.
What I expect to get out of this is mainly academics, to get a good education so I can go to college for computers.
The math classes, science, it has really helped me get better grades in the things that I'm studying for.
What we try to do at the Father Troike program is to form the whole man. So we begin the day with Mass. We get them involved as altar servers, as lectors, as in many different ways, and then of course the academic schedule. But noontime comes, they have lunch together, and then we go out and the boys can either play baseball or basketball, or they can be in the game room.
Well, I've always played sports. It's been like since I was a child I was playing sports, and here at Cathedral you can play whatever sport you want. I play all 3 sports and it's so much fun. And we play good in every sport and we always present a challenge.
I joined as an incoming freshman, and then I volunteered for freshman year, sophomore year, and this year junior year. So that'd be 4 years, I guess. Being here as head counselor has been really interesting because it gives you a lot of leadership opportunities. I stay in the game room where the kids play ping pong and chess and board games and stuff. And dealing with that has been definitely challenging. You have to understand that they're children, right? And you got to deal with them the right way. But you don't want to be rough on them.
At the end of the day, you like to unwind, and it's the summer. And my favorite sport is softball, and I like that because I'm a good hitter.
At first I thought, it wasn't going to be fun. Until then I got here, I was like, wow, this is really an amazing place. And then I thought of being a priest and coming to this school.
Cathedral has made me closer to thinking about the vocation. It made you think about it harder, and then going to Mass every day. And it's not like it's forced down to you. You just decide whether to become a priest or not, and it really helps you decide.
Senior year will be interesting because I have to start thinking about colleges and stuff, and whether or not I really want to go into the seminary, because that's the big deal about cathedral prep, you know, the discernment of priesthood. I think of it as two paths, right? There's the priesthood, then there's everything else, because that entire world is just open, and I really have no idea where I'm going.
What I find interesting, over the years, there have been a large number of priests of our Diocese of Brooklyn that didn't go to Cathedral Prep, but went to the Father Troike program. And I think that's an absolute blessing. Father Patrick Keating, Father Rob Kegron, Father James Rodriguez, Father James Cunningham, they graduated from other high schools within the Diocese of Brooklyn. They didn't come to Cathedral, but they all had attended at one time or another the Father Troike program.
Of course, our subject is...
And that is all for tonight. Be sure to join us tomorrow when we will have the latest from the Republican National Convention. Until then, you can visit us online at currentsny.net. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faubles. On the day that registration opened for World Youth Day 2013, scenes of excitement from last year's event. Thank you for watching and have a good night.